Greetings, everybody. My name is Brandy Reitter, and I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Broadband Office. It is a pleasure to be before you today to introduce the Colorado Broadband Roadmap. This presentation is an overview of the document, which is available online. But basically, this project was born out of Governor Polis's executive order that he issued earlier this year in 2022, accelerating Colorado broadband. And so what that really is it was a strategy that was laid out in the executive order among many directives. And so we completed this project earlier this year, and it included a lot of engagement with stakeholders and collaborators. So I just want to thank those who participated in our process. I want to say thank you so much for your ideas and thoughts and strategies. Those are reflected in the document. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump right into my presentation. Hopefully everybody can see that pretty well. So like I said, this was a directive that was established by Governor Polis earlier this year. And the purpose of the roadmap is to set the strategic vision and goals for broadband for the state of Colorado over the next couple of years. And so there's a lot of historic funding available. So we have a really great strategy now that'll really set the foundation for how we spend our funding. Just a couple of disclaimers, the strategy is as of this summer. So we know data changes, we know the broadband space will change as well as our federal funding parameters, programs. And so, we'll update the plan when things change so that we have a plan that stays relevant and we can continue to use it. So the problem for us, the problem statement really is, how do you bridge a digital divide? The global pandemic definitely elevated the conversation, but for many, the digital divide has existed for a long time. And, I think with the pandemic, it definitely elevated the conversation, and the federal government stepped up and wanted to make big improvements in this space. And this is a really historic time to do that. And so we're pretty confident that we can bridge that divide for Colorado. And again, the digital divide isn't just urban, it's also rural, because we have folks in our higher populated areas that have connectivity issues as well. So we used several data assumptions to develop this roadmap. We had a couple of mapping tools that we used. We used CostQuest data, and we also used our Colorado Broadband map that is available online as well. And then we also surveyed over 2,000 residents and over 200 local governments and community-based organizations, as well as did focus groups and interviews to develop the plans. We also worked with our agencies to develop individual plans to address broadband. And we think it's a pretty holistic approach and view for broadband for the state in terms of setting that strategic vision. So based on those assumptions, we're recommending 4 goals. The first goal is bolster economic opportunity by connecting 99% of residents, particularly those in rural communities, to high-speed internet by 2027. This is our North Star. This was the main goal that Governor Polis explained to us and prioritized for the Colorado Broadband Office. So this is our North Star. And then goal number 2, expand digital inclusion and adoption to achieve affordability, access, and digital literacy by 25% by 2027. And then the third goal is enable Colorado to thrive by fostering and supporting a digital economy by 2027. And goal number 4, strengthen resilience across Colorado communities through broadband by 2027. So those are our top 4 recommendations in the roadmap. So a couple of key findings came out as part of our research, and some of these findings we're working towards. We're successfully completing. Some of them are in different phases or different stages of the process. And there's some that we have identified that we still need to address. So build the capabilities of the broadband office. This is what we've been doing over the last year or so. I'm happy to report that we're fully staffed and we're ready to go. And the next one is set a vision and run diagnostics to align policy objectives and feasibility to achieve our program goals. So the vision is the roadmap. And then when I say run diagnostics, it really means that we need to currently assess and evaluate where we are in our strategies to make sure that they're aligned with our objectives, to make sure that they're achieving our goals. And so this is very important as you implement a strategic plan. And then build location level mapping and analytics capability. Data is what you use to make the best decisions in your personal life or your professional life, whether you're running a business or an organization. Data is at the crux of all your decision making. So we're onboarding resources to help us develop a location level map that'll help us perfect our mapping capabilities. And so those will be hopefully available after the first of the year. And then set deployment and equity strategy, and then design an equitable grant process that ensures price discovery through competition and develop application materials. It is really important for the Colorado Broadband. Equity is really top of mind as we're developing our programs. We want to give everybody an opportunity to apply for funds, and we want to make it easy for you all to do so, to the extent that you can with federal funding, of course. And then price discovery really speaks to understanding how much people are paying for internet. What are they getting for their money? And with competition, sometimes you can bring prices down. And so we'll be paying attention to that as we see our proposals, like, what is the short term, but also what is the long-term game whenever or the long-term game that, these projects will help us, play to achieve price affordability and competition and better service. And then execute and evaluate proposals based on robust criteria that considers viability and the efficient use of funds. We want to make sure that what we're funding is going to work over the long term. So we're gonna develop criteria that'll address some of those issues, so that we can make sure we're spending money where it needs to be spent, and we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck. And set up oversight functions and report on results. There's no shortage of oversight as far as handling federal dollars. And so we do a lot of reporting out. And so we continue to do that. We want to be transparent with our stakeholders on what we're doing. There's a lot of oversight built into this process, just in general. And so we think it's important because we want to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And ensure external stakeholder engagement. Engagement is really important to the Colorado Broadband Office. It's also a requirement for our federal programs. So we don't really have an option to not do stakeholder engagement, not that we would ever opt out of it, because I'm a firm believer that the best programs and positive results really rely on engagement of stakeholders. And so, we learn a lot as we go as the broadband office, and we'll continue to learn. And so we definitely want to learn from our stakeholders on what we should be doing and how we should do it better, so that we can get the dollars out there and get people connected to the internet. And establish strong internal project management. This is an ongoing process for the broadband office, and we recognize that there's a lot of communities out there that don't have capacity or a strong project management function. So we are making funds available to help support those who need it. And then identify additional funding for broadband to ensure the long-term sustainability for one-time capital investments. We don't want to get into a situation where we set it and forget it. That's not a good place to be when you're building out infrastructure. There has to be a long-term sustainability thought around maintaining the assets that we're investing in. I don't have an answer for what that looks like today, but it's something that we're keeping in mind as we move forward. Obviously, the first priority is get broadband deployed, but we'll be having conversations about how we make sure our investments are sustainable. The next step is the short-term and long-term execution of the plan. I'm a huge believer of plans shouldn't sit on the shelf. They should be implemented. And so we will be implementing some of the activities and strategies that we have identified. So next, I'm going to just explain the goals and then show you kind of some maps and data that we have associated with some of the goals. There's obviously more data in our roadmap online. But goal number 1 is the roadmap to connect 99%. Again, our North Star. So the strategies under this goal are prioritize fiber deployment and target funding in areas where a negative business case for investment for the unserved and underserved exist. And then consider greenfield deployment to reduce the cost of investment and increase competition. When we say greenfield deployment, for those that don't know, basically it's redeveloping old infrastructure or upgrading it, if you will. Sometimes it's cheaper to upgrade what you have versus building new in some instances. So where there's opportunities for this type of strategy, we'll consider it to the extent that it qualifies for funding, of course. But subsidizing where we can will definitely and lower costs and make the market more competitive. And then set a high cost per location threshold, which balances funding, the use of fiber and alternative technologies to expand coverage for harder to serve areas. It's not a one size fits all. There's definitely very high cost areas of the state and not so high cost areas of the state. So, it's probably going to be a mix of high cost location thresholds. And this really dictates how much fiber we're going to spend money on versus alternative technologies. I will tell you, like many of you know, Colorado is very expensive. And so, there's probably going to be a mix of alternative technology because there's really hard locations to reach. And so that's just the reality of our beautiful state. And then the last one is utilize location level mapping and analytics to assess areas of critical need and to target areas that require subsidies. And so again, we're moving towards location level mapping. We're really thrilled about that. And so we'll be able to really, really, dial down into areas of critical need. So here's a map that I'd like to show you. It basically represents the state of Colorado. And it really shows homes without internet as a percentage of the county. And so if you are in the red and pink areas of the state, your percentage of folks that lack internet are much higher than in the green areas of the state. And so, the good news is we can target funding in these areas, and everybody can have, everybody, because of the percentages and because everywhere in Colorado has a lack of folks connecting to the internet. We're gonna make it so that everybody has an opportunity to apply to our grant program. So, and if you're in the green areas of the state, of course, the percentage is a little less for you all, but there's still people that aren't connected. And so in our findings, we found out that approximately 166,000 households in Colorado lack internet because of gaps of access and digital equity. And so that's approximation, of course, as we sharpen our pencils with our data, we'll refine these numbers, but that's what we're saying at this point in time. And so we have some work to do. And then the next graph shows, this really speaks to locations. And so we're saying 14% of locations in Colorado are unserved or underserved. And that represents about 360,000 locations that lack adequate access to broadband. And if you look at the map, or if you look at the chart here, the 5% we're saying are unserved and the 9% are underserved. If I'm doing my math correctly, that's 14%. That 14% is the most expensive parts to serve in Colorado. And so it represents probably 60% of the funds that we're going to receive. So we're going to have to be creative in our grant making. And I encourage you all to be creative in your grant applications on how to serve as many people as possible to bring these numbers down. Goal number 2, increase digital adoption. So the strategies under this goal are to conduct a landscape analysis of existing digital literacy programs and develop strategies to address any gaps. And so this work is happening at the state currently. And we partner with the Office of Future of Work in the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment to run these programs for us. And they're really excellent. They're doing a great job. And then conduct digital navigator pilots, which within targeted populations, and evaluate strategies that work and leverage public-private partnerships to build skills and confidence in the use of technology. We already initiated a digital navigator pilot last year, and it's been pretty successful. So we're in the process of evaluating that and hopefully replicating that across the state. And there's a lot of money to do that. Lower costs through state programs and support partnerships that provide low-cost devices. Devices are one of the adoption barriers to internet, if you will. And so there's a lot of great work that's already happening in the state to help provide low-cost devices for individuals. And now that there's more funding for it, we hope to do more in this space. So this graph really speaks to the barriers of adoption to internet. For households without internet service. So 56% of the adoption gap is due to limited access and gaps in coverage. So the 166,000 households that I mentioned earlier, that equates to about 93,000 households that really the adoption is just having the physical infrastructure. And then for the digital literacy and equity component of it, 44% of the barrier of adoption of internet is due to affordability lack of devices and literacy. And that equates to or represents 73,000 households. And so we have some work to do there. The 56% is pretty straightforward. It's infrastructure. The 44% is a little bit of a harder nut to crack. But, through BEAD and digital equity, and I'll go over those programs here in a second, there's funding that's available to address affordability and the lack of devices and skilling people up to understand how to use the internet. And so, those are it's a holistic approach to solving the digital divide. It's not just infrastructure. It's also, why don't people connect to the internet? And how do we solve for that? So those are definitely strategies that we're going to be working on over the next couple of years. And we'll hopefully make some big improvements in that space. Goal number 3, foster the digital economy. So the strategies underneath this goal are to expand workforce deployment or development programs, I should say, to prepare and support industry to address labor shortages that are barriers to deployment. I know, supply chain issues and labor issues are a huge deal in this industry, as well as many other industries. And so we're talking about maybe developing a program to help support industry, skill people up to help support the deployment of broadband. And then improve delivery of government services, leveraging technology and facilitate a culture of innovation and efficiency among government agencies. This strategy is really, how do we make government work easier for you in the deployment of broadband and improving your digital equity and literacy? And so, this comes down to legislation, different policies, how you design your grant program, even just really good communication and collaboration. So we're looking at all of those as we move along to make it easier for our folks. And ensure investments in broadband leverage existing strategies and programs already in place to improve the digital economy. In the roadmap, there's a lot of really great work going on, especially with some of the agencies that we talk to and our stakeholders. So, we don't want to reinvent the wheel if something's working really well, either internally as a state or externally with our partners, like regionalism, collaboration. We want to make sure that the Colorado Broadband Office supplements those initiatives. And so we'll be looking at those as we move along in our programs as well. So the workforce development, I just wanted to kind of show you an analysis that we did in the roadmap, but we're saying 50% of deployment related roles in Colorado could show shortages if they haven't already, especially outdoor labor intensive roles. And so this industry isn't just impacted, there's many other industries, but to the extent that we can try to help out as the state of Colorado, we will. So some of the key takeaways are some of the manual roles in the deployment of broadband, typically they're typically the largest gaps. And so, we've identified the top 5 here. This list isn't exhaustive. There's a list in the roadmap if you want to check it out. But, laborers, foremen, locators, restoration crews, safety leads, these are all positions that, we see pretty significant gaps in. And then, one of the things we could do is we could, source labor from across state or encourage that as a state of Colorado to the extent that we can, of course. So these are all things that we're thinking about. Again, I don't have answers for you today, but these are strategies that we're gonna tease out and vet over the next couple of years. And the good news is there's funding to do so. So our last goal number 4, strength and resilience. There's 2 strategies underneath this goal. First one is link the operations of infrastructure and public, private, and community broadband networks to encourage collaboration and ensure resiliency. Really what this speaks to is we want to link projects together, right? So that there's redundancy, there's reliability, we're leveraging regionalism, other partnerships, building broadband in one area without kind of thinking holistically or comprehensively around the region about how you can leverage assets, link assets to other assets. We want to make sure we encourage people to do that. There's a lot of really great examples going on in the state around this effort. So we definitely want our money to go pretty far as far as linking our communities. And so collaboration is really kind of at the center of that. And then leverage open access deployment and ensure that connectivity to network infrastructure is available during emergencies. And so, open access is important. I know it doesn't make sense in all cases, but, especially for middle mile, being able to have redundancy, having multiple providers, being able to tap, especially around emergencies. We've had quite a few pretty really challenging, emergencies around fire, mudslides, flooding. And so, keeping an open access really helps public safety stay up during emergencies. It creates redundancy. And so, those are strategies that we look at to see, that improve resilience in our communities. And again, these strategies will add more as we go, but this is really important work, and we want to make sure that we're able to leverage it for our 24/7 first responders providers as well. So the next part of my presentation really goes over the funding sources to achieve our goals. There's several programs that we're leveraging right now to achieve some of our goals, and I just wanted to highlight those for you. So our goal number one is our 99% goal, and we're leveraging all the federal programs to achieve 99% right now. We have BEAD, which is Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, Digital Equity, the DE, and then EMM, which is Enabling Middle Mile, CPF, which is Capital Projects Funds, and then SLFRF, which is State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. And so I will tell the stakeholders on the call that BEAD, I get asked all the time, what are we doing with BEAD? Do we have plans? When is the money coming? This program is the lion's share of our funding, and we won't really see a lot of the flow of dollars, if you will, until the end of 23, early 24, based on the process. But in the meantime, we still have programs that are available that we'll be leveraging to deploy broadband and support digital equity. So goal number two is the adoption goal. And, we're leveraging all the funds for this program, except for obviously the Enabling Middle Mile program, because that's strictly just an infrastructure grant. So we think we have plenty of money to help solve the adoption gap, especially for digital literacy and equity. And then goal number three is the economy. Supporting the digital economy. We're leveraging all the funds to do this. I think, it's not a one size fits all. You have to, combine, stack, and braid all your funding to achieve some of the strategies in this goal. And then last, the resiliency goal, goal number four, we're leveraging all the programs except for digital equity, because that's more of a programmatic goal. And so these are all the funds that we're using to support the resilient, ensuring our communities are resilient, I guess I should say. And then next, I have the roadmap to connect to 99% by 2027. And so this is my best effort to kind of predict how our funds are going to flow and when we'll be able to achieve our results. We'll have to update this table as we go. But I also included our federal funds as well as our state dollars, the high cost support mechanism funds that are leveraged for last mile projects, so our broadband deployment fund and board. But as you can see, as we go out into the out years from 2022 to 2027, we're reaching 99%. And so there's quite a huge ramp up. Our baseline today, I'll back up, our baseline is 91.1%. And so, we want to get to 99% by 2027, but the big ramp up is going to be around 2025 or 2026 when we see the lion's share of our BEAD money going out and being implemented. And this table represents spend, not when the state receives the money. So, we're in it for the long term. And as many of you know, it's going to take a couple years to expend the funds. And so, but yeah, this is our table to connect to 99%. We'll update it periodically as assumptions change, but this is our best effort as of today. So I mentioned that the agencies that we spoke to were involved or collaborated with us on the roadmap. I kind of highlighted the big takeaways from that effort. Again, a lot of really great work happening across the state. Just want to say thank you to all of those who participated. I learned so much about your area and what you're trying to achieve in broadband and how it impacts your agency as well as your customers, which are the residents. So some of the key takeaways are improve access through physical and digital adoption, and then leverage funding and facilitate public-private partnerships. I can't say this enough. It's going to take the public and private sector to solve the digital divide. And then improve administrative efficiencies and effectiveness. And outreach and communication is very, very important to our stakeholders. leverage community anchors to expand access. And telehealth, literacy, and education services continue to be a high priority for the state. And then support and improve digital equity and literacy. And then collaborate and build capacity to support broadband deployment. And then integrate technology platforms in the field for userability and the user of government services makes it easier. And so those are some of the big takeaways from the agency broadband plans. Again, I encourage you to read them. There's a lot of great work happening or being planned for. So just thank you to those who participated. So the next steps for the Colorado Broadband Office after the roadmap is we're going to initiate a 45-day feedback process on the plan. Again, engagement's really important, and we want to make sure that we're engaging everybody, hearing their thoughts about it. We'll summarize that feedback and publish it on our website, and then we'll incorporate any feedback that we see that we might have missed. Again, it's a collaboration, it's a collaborative effort. So if we miss something, we'll, in good faith, update our assumptions. And then set up an implementation matrix for the roadmap so that we can, from a public-facing perspective, you can see how we're doing. We already do this work internally, but we want to make sure we're transparent on where we are with our roadmap. And then revisit annually. Again, plans are plans. And, this isn't a one and done. This isn't, plans are evolving, strategies evolve. And as we evolve in our strategies and our funding programs, we'll make sure that we update the roadmap on an annual basis to reflect what the current state of affairs, if you will. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for the Colorado Broadband Roadmap. Again, it was a great project, and we're really happy that it's done. And it will really, really help us set the vision for BEAD capital projects, all of our digital equity and state and local fiscal recovery funds, and enabling middle mile, and any other state programs like our high cost support mechanisms. So we're getting better with our data, and it's really showing and being able to develop our strategies. So anyway, thank you guys so much for the time that you've taken to listen to this webinar. I'll stop sharing my screen. And again, if you have any questions, you can always visit our website and, sign up for our newsletters. And then we conduct roundtables with industry specific and then community specific, 2 separate roundtables, recognizing that those 2 stakeholder groups have different needs and different questions. So I encourage you to hop on those and see what we have going on and share your feedback. Any questions you have, those are great formats to do that. And again, we'll be out and about doing our roadshow tours and webinars, and follow us, newsletters, social media, all that good stuff, so that you're plugged in. But anyway, it was great. Thank you guys so much for listening to me, and I appreciate all of you, and I'm really excited to make progress on the digital divide. So thank you for your time.